Good morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with Algo. Today's host is Scott Farrell, and he is their Strategic Accounts Manager for the U.S. and Canada, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box, and Scott will answer them at the end of today's presentation. Scott, thank you so much for being with us today. We greatly appreciate it. I am finished for now, so please go ahead and take it on over.
Well, thanks, Julie. Thanks for the introduction. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to take you through a detailed product overview of our product set. So we'll talk about Algo and how we go to market with our products, how they work, and we'll look at some different use case scenarios. And then, of course, I'll take questions at the end of the presentation. So for those of you who are not familiar with Algo, we've been in business for quite a number of years. We've always been in the telephony manufacturing space, and we've evolved to a company that build endpoints that are IP-based for public address, visual notification, and door intercom. And you'll see that we build a series of accessories as well that can tie into our product set. So again, my name is Scott Farrell. I'm a strategic accounts representative for Algo in the United States and Canada, and I deal, with integrators and customers, and I'm available to assist. I do have a lot of experience in the industry, and I've been in multiple customer-facing roles, technical roles. So what we'll talk about today, the factors that we see driving IP adoption. We'll look at the solution overview. Some detailed product and technology discussion, and I'll show you some applications and use cases that we come across quite frequently. So our product set ties in nicely to this type of a workflow. Customers that want to be able to get out the message very quickly for critical and safety security reasons. Our product set being IP-based can tie into, as you'll see, multiple UC platforms. So we can quickly and immediately communicate with constituents in an environment leveraging our product set, whether that be a public announcement, visual notification, or a combination of both. We're also seeing a lot of customers that are getting away from legacy infrastructure. Some legacy infrastructure for paging has been out there for many years. It's cumbersome for them to manage it. They have trouble finding parts and resources for these systems. So we're seeing a lot of customers that are refreshing a lot of the operational technology that they receive is IP-based, whether it be a speaker or camera, HVAC system in a building. So we're seeing wide adoption based on network infrastructure. And then our endpoints, being IP-based, have an intuitive web interface for management. So for ease of install and improved, management going forward. No longer, do you have to physically go and address the device to change a volume tapping or zoning area. That is all done through the web interface. So everything is done over the network with this type of technology. And then from a UC perspective, all these SIP-based and cloud-based services that are available now are driving adoption of IP, and we are certified on over 60 different platforms with our product set. So from a vertical perspective, any vertical that has public address, you'll find Algo products in. Education is probably one of our fastest growing verticals, and we're seeing significant growth across the board actually in logistics, manufacturing, and transportation, retail, and government. They're all very, very healthy. The company is seeing exponential growth with our technology. And the reason that our product set is so popular is the fact that it's quite simple. We don't have a head-end arrangement as many other systems do. So when you get into legacy infrastructure, there's an amplifier, there's other boxes that are there for zone controlling, telephone answering modules, and so on and so forth. And you'll see more of that as I go through my presentation. And a lot of my competitors that have IP-based offerings as well, they have server requirements, they have licensing requirements, and so on and so forth. So with our product set, everything is embedded within the endpoints. The speakers are self-amplified. The devices draw their power from the customer's PoE infrastructure, so there is no, mains power required. So what we do is we leverage the customer's network and their UC platform to drive outcomes, whether that be paging, loud ringing, emergency notification, and we'll go through that in more detail as we go through the presentation. But again, having no common equipment just simplifies our solution set. And a lot of customers like it because they can basically deploy our endpoints into a VLAN and secure them and lock them down. So we build a variety of speakers. The 8186 is a horn speaker that's weather rated. It's very commonly used in schools for outdoor applications or in gymnasiums and shop class environments. Very, very popular in logistics and manufacturing environments as well. And again, it's an outdoor rated device, so it can be installed in a wet environment. We build the 8180, which is a small, compact speaker, great for loud ringing and paging in smaller enclosed areas. And we also build, vertical specific devices. So the 8190 that you see down there in the middle bottom, it has an integrated clock, a call button, it has a line array of speakers. So this was intended for the education vertical surface mounts in a classroom, and somebody can interact with the device to set up a call to the office. So all of these devices have the ability to SIP register and can facilitate two-way communication in addition to paging. So they're multifaceted devices. We build in ceiling speakers as well. So the 8188 that you see, the 8189 is a vendor form factor of our in-ceiling 8188 for surface mounting. And the portfolio is continuing to expand. So the 8188 and the 8180 and the 8186, 8190, and 8189 were all home run to the data switch. So they were an individual data drop for each device. So based on feedback from the field, we have introduced a new series of speakers. So the 8196 and the 8198 with satellite technology. So the satellite speakers are referred to in the horn version, 1196, and in the in-ceiling version, 1198. So what we've done is we've taken our speakers that were PoE and developed PoE plus speakers. So we have more power available. And what we're able to do now is, drop in a single PoE plus drop to what we call a host speaker, and then we can drive in a daisy chain fashion up to 3 more satellite speakers. So in the depiction here, I have the host, and then I have a simple RJ45 connection from the host to each of the satellite speakers, and I have a 50-foot patch cable length between each hop. So from the first speaker to the second, 50 feet, and then from the second to the third, 50 feet, third to the fourth, 50 feet. So think of a hallway, common areas, where you would want to deploy, several speakers to cover an open area. This is great because what it does is it reduces the number of drops that have to be run. It also reduces the number of data ports, and it simplifies the installation greatly. The satellite speakers are monitored and managed by the host 8198, so the power is equally distributed between them. And it's a great solution, and it's being well adopted. We've also, as I said, introduced it with our horn speakers. So the 8196, same idea in that you can have 3 horn speakers. So when you get into those logistics environments where you're putting horns back to back in aisleways, no longer you have to run 2 drops. You can run a single drop and drive a pair of speakers. Or if you're in an open area and there's a pillar there, for instance, in a manufacturing environment, and you wanted to cluster 4 speakers together, now you can run a single drop and then easily mount those speakers and have all 4 of them run off a single PoE plus drop. We also build visual notification devices. So the 8128 is a white LED strobe light that we manufacture. And we do sell lens covers that you can order to change the color of that white LED strobe. But based on feedback again from the field, we were asked to build a multicolored strobe. So we've introduced the 8138, and it comes equipped with multicolored LEDs. So you have that red, green, blue, amber LED color built into the strobe. And then depending on what the workflow is, emergency notification, for instance, where you wanted to do a shelter in place, you might want to flash amber, you might have a tornado warning, and you'll flash red, or a lockdown, flash red, all clear, flash green, and so on and so forth. So you can have different colors, different patterns with the 8138 technology. And the reason that the 8190 is showing up again is we do build another version of it, the 8190S, which is optional for the strobe lights. So this device also has the red, green, blue capabilities that are built into it. So I'll be spending more time on the adapters later on in this presentation, but basically the 8301 is an extremely popular device for us. What it does is it provides a balance line output to a legacy paging infrastructure, and that's extremely popular in a lot of the different verticals that we work with, that are migrating away from legacy phone systems, premise-based systems, going into cloud-based systems. They need a bridge basically from IP to that legacy infrastructure. We do that with the 8301 with a balanced line output. So I'll get into more detail and explain this technology, but very, very widely adopted and an extremely popular device. And as I said earlier, our devices are multifaceted. So you can see that there's an auxiliary input on this device. So I could plug a source into here and I could, for instance, stream music onto the network and play that out on an amplifier. I talked about emergency notifications. So we have the ability to register this device multiple times, the 8301, and you'll see that in the use case slide. So again, very, very popular device for us, and low cost and delivers a lot of functionality for a single device. The reason we build the 8373 is for customers that have legacy infrastructure that would have had a zone controller. Zone controller being a device that would control the integrity and paging on lines of speakers. What we do there is we preserve that amplifier and the integrity to the speaker runs, but we retire the physical zone controller they would have had. So you'll see that these adapters dramatically simplify our customer's environment. And I'll get into more detail about these adapters further on in the presentation. We also build a variety of accessories. So, there's intelligence built into our accessories. When one of these devices is deployed, it's a single wire connection into the relay inputs on our device. So we have normally open, normally closed capabilities available on all of our speakers and adapters. So for instance, the volume control that you see there, the 1204, I could attach that, to a ceiling speaker in a boardroom, or some speaker attached to a speaker in a gymnasium where they're writing exams, and somebody would mute the volume, turn the volume off because they don't want to be disturbed in that meeting or while they're writing exams. But if somebody were then trigger, an emergency notification, we would actually override the mute and play that emergency. So there is, when you attach one of our devices to a speaker, you basically log into the device, you identify the device that you've attached, and then you just build a workflow around that, muting the volume, with the 1202 call button, you can set up a call. And again, you'll see more of this in the use case slides as we go forward. So we build 4 intercoms, IP intercoms, and the 2 on the left that you see, the 8201 and the 8028, are audio-only devices. So the 8201 basically is a SIP PoE intercom. So you literally connect an RJ45 port directly to the device. It SIP registers, and then somebody would push that button, and of course the administrator would have configured an attendant, target attendant. So then the call would be set up. They'd have an audio path. You can speak to the person, and then electively they can push a digit on their phone at the far end to open the door, release the door lock. So you would need network for the 8201, direct connect to it. And what we do build is the 8028. It's a 2-piece solution. It's really nicely geared for retrofits. So in the past, with legacy phone systems and intercom systems, they would have been digital or analog in nature. And they could be quite a distance away from the key system or the phone system. And it may not necessarily be easy for you to get a network drop to that location. So that's why we've built this 2-piece solution. What happens is the controller controls, basically the controller connects to the IP network and SIP registers into the UC environment. And then we allow you to connect the door station up to 1,000 feet away. So you could repurpose a single pair of wires that would have been there driving an analog or a digital device to drive our door station. So again, really nice for retrofits. Same use case, basically a target attendant is programmed, and someone presses the button, it sets up an audio call, and once they decide that they want to let the person in, they can select a digit on their phone, which would activate the release of the door. We build 2 intercoms that are video and audio capable, so the 8039 and the 8036. The 8039 is a slim form factor with a 180-degree view camera. A lot of the new buildings have glass frontages, so this is designed to mount on the mullion beside the glass. So you would run a PoE drop to this device, and it would sit right at the steering for your UC platform. And then again, somebody could walk up to this device, they would press the call button, and it would facilitate a call. They would have audio established. And if you do support H.264 on your platform and they have an H.264 capable device or application, that would display the video. If they don't have that ability, we also support web video. So they could actually just bookmark the IP address of this device. And when they're speaking to the person, they could bring up the video in a browser. This device can be customized as well. So if I were to walk up to it and press the call button, it could actually play a WAV file and basically say for this department, press 1, for that department, press 2. I could load codes onto this device. So if I wanted someone to have access temporarily, I could upload a code here, and then they could walk up to this device and press a star and a code, and it would activate the release of the door. The 8036 is a SIP multimedia interface. So it's a graphic touch display that's highly customizable. So a customer can interact with this device. So you can have multiple pages, directories, informational pages, different button layouts, very, very well positioned in that unattended lobby environment to facilitate that phone call, verification with video. Same idea, has H.264 support and the web video support. This device actually supports two-way video if there was a use case where you wanted to actually do two-way video. I'll mention that all these devices are outdoor rated devices as well, so they can be installed in the outdoors and wet and harsh environments. So this is the 8063 IP relay controller. So I was talking about being able to release the door. Some of our devices have onboard release mechanisms. They can all also be paired with the 8063. The 8036 needs to be paired with the 8063 to facilitate door release. So basically what happens is, for example, with the 8036, I've interacted with the person, and then the far end decides they want to let the person in, and they push a DTMF digit. That DTMF digit gets passed to the 8063, and the 8063 activates its normally open, normally closed relay, which is typically wired into the door stripe or the door company's controller to release that mechanism to come in. On the 8201, 8039, you have the option of local, normally open, normally closed, or the use of the 8063 IP relay controller for secure door release. So with such wide adoption of IP, we're seeing a number of endpoints get deployed into environments. So I have many customers where they're in the hundreds of endpoints in an environment. Take a school system. A high school can easily have 200 or 300 speakers in it. So rather than having to manage all that infrastructure on their own in a Excel spreadsheet or another database, we've built the Algo 8300. And what this does is gives you a single pane view of your Algo environment. So when you log into this device, single IP address to hit, and then it brings up that environment, and you'll be able to see all of your Algo devices, and then you'll be able to click on them and link into them. This device also monitors devices for in-service. So if somebody were to disconnect a device, this can alert someone in the IT department, for instance, that a speaker has lost connectivity and that they should go and investigate what's going on. This device also replaces the need for a TFTP server. So you're able to now store your config files on here. You can push firmware updates from this device. And if you wanted to make a bulk change, for instance, in a school, we see this quite often where they change where the classrooms are set up. So at one point in a year or the year before, you may have had the junior classes at one side of the building and the seniors the other, and then they flip it over or mix it around. You would physically have to go and change all those speakers in a legacy world. With IP, you could just select a group and then push that configuration change for zoning out to all those speakers at once. So it just simplifies the ongoing management and interaction with the Algo infrastructure. So IP enablement, IP paging, and hybrid configurations is an extremely popular use case for us. So what we see is in the world today, what a standard deployment would be when somebody's migrating to UC where they have a legacy amplifier, it's an ATA is deployed, an analog terminal adapter. So analog terminal adapters would basically be able to connect to the network and SIP register into your environment, and then they would provide an FXS port, basically dial tone to the existing telephone answering module. So you would call that ATA, it would then answer, and then it would, basically establish a call to the telephone answering module, which would then connect into the paging system, and you would make your page. So we do things differently. What we do, as I mentioned, is we provide a balanced line output. So we are not an FXS type arrangement or an FXO arrangement into a paging infrastructure. You can see that the telephony answering module is no longer in this picture, and that's because I'm SIP registered to my 8301 into the UC platform, as was the ETA, and I'm basically providing a balanced line output directly to the amplifier. I also introduced wideband codecs, so G722. ATAs are narrowband, standard kind of POTS capability, whereas G722 is wideband codec, and we have that available on all of our endpoints. So we can introduce, improved speech intelligibility with our technology, and that we just have a much broader sampling of the spectrum. So again, balanced line output directly into the amplifier. I mean, paging has literally become this simple. You have a UC environment. You can take any one of our Algo devices. You can, connect it to the customer's PoE infrastructure, register it into the UC platform. You can call it, it answers, and you have a paging system. So there's no need for common equipment any longer. Everything is embedded. These are self-amplified devices, and all the intelligence is within the device. So we're seeing, many scenarios where hosted providers are, starting to migrate large organizations that have multiple branches. And, for instance, I've worked with some tire manufacturing companies, and instead, in the past, they didn't necessarily put in, horn speakers into their bays because it was cumbersome. They had to put a lot of common equipment in to put a single horn in. And now they're easily able to do that by just adding that as a network device in their environment. And then they can manage that device through an intuitive web interface as they do their new hosted environments that they're migrating to. So we're seeing that a lot of adoption where people are building out a standard, and it's deployed, and replicated over hundreds of sites. So this is a really, it's a busy slide, but it's a slide that is very common. So what we'll see is customers that have legacy infrastructure and they want to preserve that. So I'll take a school, for instance. They may not necessarily have the budget to replace everything and go fully IP. So what a lot of school systems will do is they'll leverage their legacy amplifiers to drive the speakers in the common areas, to the hallways, cafeterias, and so on and so forth. And then what they'll do is deploy IP technology into the classrooms because they want that advanced capability to have the two-way communication. They want that, clear wideband codec played into that classroom. And then, they'll leverage some of the features that we have for emergency notification and scheduling and so on and so forth. So what we'll see are these hybrid solutions where they're going to preserve the amplifiers and then deploy IP as required. And there's a lot of flexibility that we bring to the table here as well, right? So we support multicast on our devices. So what I'm depicting here is a single SIP call. It's terminating on an 8301, and then I'm basically broadcasting it onto the network, and I'm hitting all these amplifiers via the other adapters, and I'm also able to send my message to other RTP speakers. And if their phones interpret RTP multicast, I can also broadcast my message over those phones. So your Polycoms and your Yealinks of the world. Some of the new Cisco phones, some of the new Mitel 6920s, 6940s, they all support multicast. So you can get really granular in how you do this because we have up to 50 multicast zones available for use on any one of our endpoints. So what I'm depicting here is a single call and I'm radiating everywhere. But the 8301 could terminate the call, play a wave file, and say, for amplifier 1, press 1, amplifier 2, press 2, page all, press 4. So I can basically slice and dice this environment any way I'd like. If the customer didn't want to have the wave file with the with pushing digits, we support multiple SIP registrations within the 8301. So you can literally have a SIP registration for zone 1, zone 2, and page all. So it's very, very flexible in what we're able to do. So a lot of customers will do this hybrid model. The other thing that is really popular, with our solution set, when you get into very large organizations, they can do their migration to IP in a phased manner. I'm working with a large airport They have well over 3,000 analog speakers and 150 amplifiers in their environment. And as they're renovating the environment, because they're doing a full renovation, multi-year, they're going to retire all of their legacy infrastructure, and they're going to be completely IP. But we allow them to do that in a phased manner. And in their end state, they're going to be able to have a view of in-service for all of their endpoints. They have a very high security posture there, and they want to be able to ensure that everything is online, so they'll be able to monitor and manage their infrastructure over the network. With legacy infrastructure, if you were to have a wire cut to a series of speakers, you wouldn't know about that unless somebody told you. Whereas when you work with IP technology, you know when something gets disconnected because you're able to supervise it. So that's another reason that so many people are adopting IP. So I like to show this slide, when I get into the common use cases, the solution components. So think of us as building bricks. What you're going to do is you're going to take, the device that you're going to listen to what the customer's requirements are, and then you're going to pick the product set that's going to address the workflow. So you're going to leverage SIP, you're going to leverage Multicast, the fact that we support the network time protocol on all of our devices, basically allows you to ensure that everything is in sync. We have the calendaring application that's embedded in the 8301. We have our, we have our 2-wired accessories that can be tied into any of our devices. And we've also recently introduced the RESTful API suite. So you can actually control our devices using URL messages. So people can write their own software to control our devices as well. So why I like this slide is it just kind of hammers home the fact that you don't have to buy an entire solution. You buy the parts that are going to address the customer's need, and then you deploy those. So we support multicast, as I've mentioned. So there's a lot of customers that are under the impression that you have to SIP register everything when you get into an IP infrastructure, and that's not the case. So these devices that you see up at the top, the 2 horn speakers, they're sitting on the network, they're subscribed to a channel, but when I initiate that SIP call and it gets terminated on the speaker at the bottom, my voice is then replicated and dumped out onto the network, and these devices just receive those RTP packets and then they play that announcement. So not everything needs to be SIP registered in this type of an environment. If you have loud ringing requirements, we can SIP register depending on your platform. You may have to have separate SIP registrations. You may be able to add an additional device into a SIP profile. But what's nice about these speakers and these adapters is they can be a loud ringing device and a paging device and an emergency notification device. They don't have to be dedicated to a single function. They're multifaceted devices, and you, of course, as the administrator, you log in and administrate, what the functions of those devices are going to be. We also do visual notification, with our devices for loud ringing, emergency notification, and again, multifaceted. This is a depiction of a feature that we have in our speakers for ambient noise capabilities. So there is a microphone that's embedded within all of our speakers. And what we're able to facilitate is, of course, 2-way communication, but the speaker can also have the amplifier enabled to listen for noise. So what I'm depicting up at the top is the environment while it's quiet, we're quiet. And that's what we would set our volume for nominally, so that the speakers are not overpowering when it's quiet time. And as noise gets introduced to the environment, we can dynamically, sense that and then increase our volume to address that noise that's introduced to the environment. And when the noise leaves the environment, we go back to the nominal value. So that's built into all of our speakers, not just the horn speaker. This is a depiction of the scheduling application that I was speaking of. So again, very popular in the education vertical. They can program, and upload whatever audio files they want or tone files, and then schedule them to play. This device actually became popular during COVID to be able to just have a scheduled announcement every 15 minutes in the workplace to remind people of social distancing. So I saw a use case where that was used quite widely, and just deployed and tied into a legacy amplifier, and it was able to play that message for this customer at all their sites. This is a depiction of the emergency alert capability that I spoke of. So I'm leveraging the dialing plan of the UC infrastructure to trigger events. So as I mentioned, there's a gig of memory within the adapter and the speakers. You can upload notifications, audio files, and then trigger those leveraging your dial plan. So in this example, I'm dialing 900, which is going to trigger a lockdown message that would get played on these speakers and, for instance, turn the strobe light red. When the lockdown is over, I can dial a code to cancel that emergency, and electively I can have another code to dial, for instance, 901, to play an all clear message and flash the strobe light screen. This is a depiction of a connection using one of our accessories. So basically I connect the 1202 in this example, and when somebody interacts with that button, what's it going to do? It's going to make a call to a target, play a WAV file, or is it going to do a multicast event, a SIP call, and set up a two-way audio path? So again, that's configurable, within our device, and then of course our device is aware that this is connected to it for in service. So I'd like to show our website. There's a lot of good information on the website. So when you buy devices from us, you're entitled to support. You can reach out to our support organization. You can go onto our website and go under the resources tab and download firmware. So you're entitled to firmware with our devices. The nice thing that the marketing team has put together as well is if you go to our homepage under the products tab and you click on the products tab and scroll to the bottom, you'll see that there's a catalog link there. And the nice thing about the catalog, I mean, we've talked about a lot of different products today. It just gives you a couple of slides that I touched on as an overview, but it gives you this really nice product key. So, it describes, all these different devices are shown here with their names, and there's links there. When you click on the link, it brings up a little bit more detail, and then you can get into detailed product specifications and cut sheets, user manuals, firmware updates, and so on and so forth. So lots of great information on the website for your review. And again, as I mentioned, feel free to reach out to support or sales. Again, my name is Scott Farrell. I'm available as well if you ever need help. And this is the overview I had. And Julie, I would hand it back over to you, and I can answer any questions that have come up.
Thank you very much, Scott, for that presentation. It's very, very interesting. And yes, I've got some questions for you. Let's go ahead and get started with the first one. Here we go. How many networks can one cloud managed login control?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. How many networks can one cloud managed login control?
Yeah, so we're subnet dependent, right? So basically, you would deploy our devices on a subnet, meaning that we're kind of a layer 2 environment. We would not route over the WAN. So if you were going to deploy our 8300 and to monitor a bunch of endpoints, that would be subnet specific. If you were, now when you talk about cloud, I mean, if you have a cloud offering that you're subscribed to, for instance, I'll use RingCentral as an example. They're very popular. I mean, they have what they call page groups that are available in their cloud offering, right? And they can page up to 25 different zones or page groups at the same time. And those page groups could be at independent locations, right? So it depends on what the lay of the land is. If that person wanted to reach out to me and kind of deep dive this a little further, again, we are local to the subnet with our devices and connect to the LAN. And then with the hosted environments, we can get a little more creative in how we can hit multiple sites. And then from a management perspective, later this year, we're going to be introducing a version of the 8300 that is in the cloud. So if you did have multiple sites that you wanted to be able to manage, and have a single pane view of multiple sites, we're going to be offering that as a subscription service in the cloud. But if I haven't answered that question, please feel free to reach out to me and we can get into a little more detail about that.
Thank you so much, Scott. Next question here for you. Can you tell us about the warranties for your products?
Yes, there's a 1-year warranty that comes with the products, 18 months from date of manufacture, so we do take into account warehouse time. And then once the warranty is expired, I mean, there is no ongoing maintenance costs with our devices because there is no licensing from the Algo side of the fence. So basically, when you buy the device, you own the device, you have that 1-year warranty, 18 months from date of manufacture, you're entitled to free technical support for the life of the product. You're entitled to firmware updates for the life of the product. And if you did want to buy additional warranty, we do that on an as required basis.
Thank you so much, Scott. Next question here for you. Let's see. Do ceiling speakers have models that double as access points?
No, unfortunately, we do not have any type of an access point capability, nor do we make a wireless speaker at this time.
Thank you so much. Next question here for you. How many speakers can be offered in a single school? For example, are 300 classrooms a possibility?
Sure. There's no limit. As long as you have network and you're routable for multicast and you have the SIP registration capabilities, there's no limitation whatsoever. But we've done projects with literally where there's thousands of speakers deployed in a subnet. So yeah, it's basically limitless. It's all dependent on the network.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next question here for you. With the SIP visual alerter, are these controlled wirelessly, like for podcast facilitates to signal live recording in session?
No, so they're not wireless. They're physical. They're physically connected to the network, but then you can have different activation points that would trigger different colors and patterns. So, for instance, if you were to go on air, and you wanted to have all the strobe lights turn red because somebody's gone on air, you literally could interact by pushing, a physical button somewhere. You could make a SIP phone call, and then that could trigger, everything to go solid in a certain color or a flash pattern. Alternatively, I mentioned the RESTful API suite. So if you had software and you wrote, basically code to send a URL message, you could have an application that you would be able to click on to do that. So there is multiple ways to interact with the devices and be able to, for instance, do an on air for a podcast, for instance.
Thank you, Scott. Next question here for you. Will your paging adapter only work with Algo supported devices?
Well, so the Algo 8301 paging adapter, it'll provide a balanced line output. So any legacy infrastructure, we have many that are documented on our website where we tie into legacy infrastructure, no problem. And then we support the G711 and the G722 codecs, and we support standard RTP multicast, and we also support Polycom group page. So if there were another speaker of another manufacturer, as long as it was able to do RTP multicast and supported those G711 or G722, then yeah, there would not be an issue.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next question here for you. Are your IP intercoms IP67 certified?
No, we're 65, IP65.
Okay. Thank you. Next question here for you. Would one view the 8036 SIP multimedia interface? Do you have a specific software that manages it?
No, it's just like any of our endpoints, right? So when you log into the Algo, any Algo device, you're presented with an intuitive web interface, and that's the same case for the 8036. You would log into the 8036, you're going to have the web interface presented to you, and then you would facilitate the customization of that device by uploading, PNGs, and directories and so on and so forth. So you would basically log into a web interface, and you have complete control and management of the 8036. And you upload the content that you want to display, and you basically build out the pages and the logic, for the button layouts and so on and so forth.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Last question here for you. You gave us information to contact you for any questions and the support phone number and email address. Does that include customer service support and especially technical support?
Yeah, so our tech support organization, so you'll see support at algosolutions.com. It's up on the display right now. Yeah, you're entitled to reach out to them. It's a service that it's free of charge. It's from Monday to Friday from 7:30 until 3:30 PST. So our support team is on the West Coast, and yeah, they'll take your phone calls and emails So if you're an integrator, you're an end user, if you have questions or you need help, you can reach out to us Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 3:30 PST. There's no charge for that.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott, for answering all of those questions for us today. And also thank you to everyone attending our webinar. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown here today, please visit us at www.microcom.us. Also, please remember this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so you can view it again. Scott, thank you so much for all of that very interesting information for everyone today. Everyone, have a fantastic day. Until next time, we'll have some more Algo information updates in the near future. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.